Okay, so now let's configure the projectile parent class. So first we need to complete the header file. So we want to first declare a vector variable to be our impulse force variable for each projectile. We need to declare a setter to define the value for this impulse variable. And then we'll pass this as a parameter in our launch function, which will actually add an impulse to our projectile mesh. And then after on the implementation file, as I said, we need to define the impulse setter, define a launch. Inside the launch function, we need to first find the mesh in the projectile component so that we can pass an impulse to it and then call our launch function on the gameplay. So let's see how it works. Okay, so we are here on projectile parent header file. So first I want to create a f vector, call it projectile impulse, and then a setter for this. Okay, that's in a impulse parameter, and then a launch function that will take projectile impulse as a parameter after this has been set. Okay, so let's first implement our setter function. So I'll say that my projectile impulse variable is equals to whatever parameter it is passed into our setter function. And then I will define our launch function. So first thing for our launch function is that I need to declare a variable, a umesh component variable. So umesh component is going to be a pointer. I'm going to call it my mesh. And then I need to find the mesh that is inside the projectile component. So I will pass this as a context and then find component by class. And the class I want to find is a umesh component. There we go. So if we did find a mesh, so if my mesh is not a null pointer, so what I want to do is that I want to take my mesh and add an impulse to it. So then I need to pass the impulse variable for projectile impulse. I will say that name is none, and I'll pass in true as a boolean. So when I pass true here, it means that I will simply ignore the mass of this object, and I will simply pass 100% of the impulse, regardless of either the object has a higher mass or a lower mass. It doesn't matter because it will only take into account the impulse that I'm passing. And if there is not a mesh, I'll just log a warning. No mesh found. Okay, so let me just reorder the functions here just for the sake of clarity. Okay, and I want to call launch from the gameplay passing projectile impulse. Okay, so now let's define our launcher parent class.